My sister confessed her love for my fiancé at our wedding rehearsal, and now she's threatening to expose a secret affair he had with her unless I step aside and cancel the wedding. The night before my wedding, the last thing I expected was to find myself face to face with my sister Lily, 30F, as she dropped a bombshell that shattered everything I thought I knew. We just finished the rehearsal dinner, a beautiful candlelit evening where my closest friends and family toasted to the future Even, 32M, and our planning. The air was filled with laughter, love, and the kind of excitement that only comes before a big day. But as soon as Lily pulled me aside, her face a strange mix of tension and something else I couldn't place, I knew something was off. "Kara, 28F, I need to talk to you. Privately," she said, her voice tight, a faint edge in her tone. She glanced over at Even, who was laughing with some friends across the room, completely unaware of the storm brewing. "Okay, what's going on?" I asked, feeling a pang of unease as I followed her into the hallway, away from the buzz of the rehearsal. She took a deep breath, avoiding my eyes for a moment, and then finally looked up. "I have to tell you something, and it's going to hurt. But I think you deserve to know the truth before you marry him." My stomach twisted. "What truth, Lily?" "Just say it." She hesitated, and for a second, I thought she might back down. But then she squared her shoulders and spoke. "I'm in love with Even, Kara. And he's been in love with me too." The words hummed in the air, jagged and sharp, and for a second, I thought I'd misheard her. "You're what?" Her face crumpled, a mix of frustration and desperation. I tried to keep it to myself, but I can't do it anymore. I've been in love with him for a long time. And, she took another shaky breath, he feels the same. Or he did, at least. I felt the world tilt around me, a dizzying wave of nausea and disbelief. "What are you talking about? He's my fiancé, Lily. We're getting married tomorrow. That's why I'm telling you this now. I didn't want to say anything, but I can't watch you go through with this without knowing." She looked down, her voice barely a whisper. "He and I, we had an affair. It happened before he proposed to you. He told me he loved me, Kara. And I believed him." I took a step back, the words sinking in like a knife. "You and Even? No, you're lying." She shook her head, her eyes meeting mine with a strange mixture of pain and defiance. "I'm not lying. Ask him yourself if you don't believe me. I'm telling you because I love him, Kara, and I don't think I can watch him marry you." My mind reeled, each word landing like a fresh blow. This was my sister, my best friend since childhood, the one person I thought I could trust implicitly. And now, just hours before my wedding, she was confessing to a betrayal I couldn't even begin to process. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. "Why didn't you come to me months ago?" "Because I thought I could handle it," she replied, her voice shaky. "I thought I could stand by and watch you marry him, that I'd get over it. But I can't. I love him, and I think he still loves me too. If you go through with this wedding, you'll be living a lie." I felt the floor fall out from under me, the disbelief turning into cold fury. "You're telling me this to get me to back out, aren't you? You're trying to sabotage my wedding because you think he'll run to you." She clenched her jaw, her face pale but resolute. "If you want to think that, fine. But I'm telling you the truth. If you don't believe me, ask him. Or I'll do it for you. I'm not going to stand by and watch this happen." A part of me wanted to scream, to throw something, to demand that she take it all back. But another part of me, the part that knew Lily better than anyone, saw the determination in her eyes and knew that this wasn't some twisted game. She believed what she was saying. "What are you trying to do, Lily? Ruin my life?" I choked out, my voice thick with emotion. She shook her head, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I'm trying to be honest. I know it's too late, and I know I should have told you sooner. But you deserve to know before you make a choice you can't undo." I took a deep breath, struggling to keep my composure. "You're telling me that you had an affair with my fiancé and you waited until the night before my wedding to tell me. And you expect me to just step aside?" She looked away, guilt flashing across her face. "If you don't, I'll tell him. I'll tell everyone, and then you'll be the one dealing with the fallout." The audacity left me speechless. Here she was, my own sister, demanding that I give up my future with the man I loved or else she'd go public with her confession. The betrayal burned, searing me from the inside out. "How could you do this to me, Lily?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Because I love him," she nearly shouted, her voice raw with desperation. "And if there's a chance he still loves me, I can't just let this happen." I stared at her, my heart splintering as I processed the reality. She was serious. She was willing to destroy my relationship, my wedding, even our family, all for her twisted idea of love. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate me. Not like this. "You can tell him, tell everyone if you want," I replied, my voice shaking with barely contained anger. "But I'm not going to let you bully me into walking away from my own life. You made your choice, Lily, and so did he. If there's anything left between you two, it's on him to deal with that, not me." A flicker of doubt crossed her face, and for a moment, I saw the vulnerability beneath her bitterness. But then her jaw tightened, and the defiance returned. "Fine, Kara, but just know that if you go through with this, you'll be marrying a man who was in love with someone else, someone who's still here, still waiting." I turned away, feeling the weight of her words like a vice around my heart. Without another glance, I walked back into the rehearsal room, the joyful hum of my friends and family barely registering. I felt hollow, like a shell of the person I'd been just hours before. Even was there, laughing with his groomsmen, completely oblivious to the nightmare unfolding around him. Part of me wanted to confront him then and there, to demand answers and watch his face as he tried to explain himself. But I knew that wouldn't fix anything, not in the moment. I needed time, space to decide what to do next. As I left the venue alone that night, the world felt colder, sharper. Everything I'd built, everything I'd trusted, had been fractured in a single confession. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or if there would even be a wedding. But I did know one thing. Whatever came next, I would face it with my head held high, even if it meant walking away from the man I thought I would spend my life with. The night was endless, a dark, oppressive silence filling the hotel room where I planned to spend the last night before my wedding, surrounded by friends and family. Instead, I was alone, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with Lily's words. I kept hearing her voice, that mix of desperation and defiance as she laid out her twisted ultimatum. Somehow, she'd managed to tear open a world I thought was solid. I kept thinking, rethinking, how I'd missed this, how I hadn't noticed any signs. Ivan and I had been planning this wedding for months, down to every last detail, and not once had he shown even a hint that something was wrong. Had he really loved Lily? Had they really had an affair? And if so, how could he look at me every day and act like nothing had happened? I finally fell into a restless sleep sometime in the early hours, only to wake up in a fog. It was my wedding day, yet the joy that had been so vivid yesterday felt like a distant memory. I kept replaying Lily's ultimatum: cancel the wedding or she'd tell everyone about the affair. It felt like I was trapped, forced to choose between my future and my family. After hours of indecision, I finally picked up my phone and texted Ivan. "I need to talk to you. Alone. Now." He responded almost immediately, suggesting we meet in a small cafe just a few blocks from the venue. I took a deep breath, got ready as quickly as I could, and made my way to the cafe, my heart pounding as I rehearsed what I was going to say. Part of me hoped he'd laugh it off, tell me it was all a misunderstanding, that Lily was lying, or at least twisting the truth. But another part of me was bracing for confirmation of everything she'd said. When I walked in, Ivan was already there, sitting at a small corner table, looking every bit the calm, collected groom. But as soon as he saw me, a flicker of concern crossed his face. "Kara," he said softly, standing up as I approached. "What's going on? You sounded tense." I sat down across from him, feeling the weight of every word that needed to be said. "Ivan, I need you to be completely honest with me," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. Did you have an affair with my sister?" The shock in his eyes seemed genuine. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out at first. "Kara, what? Where is this coming from?" "It's a simple question, Ivan. I need to hear it from you. Did you have an affair with her?" He looked away, running a hand over his face. "This is insane. No, I did not have an affair with Lily. Whenever she told you, it's not true." I let out a shaky breath, a glimmer of relief beginning to form. But then he continued, his tone more hesitant. "But I can't lie to you. There was a time right before I proposed when Lily and I talked. She admitted feelings for me, and I was caught off guard. It was confusing. We were all so close, and I didn't know what to do. But nothing happened, Kara. I told her I loved you, and only you, and I ended it there. I felt the relief evaporate, replaced by a renewed wave of betrayal. So, she confessed her love, and you just kept it from me. You didn't think I had a right to know that my own sister had feelings for my fiancé. Ivan looked genuinely remorseful, but I couldn't tell if it was for my sake or his own. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought if I ignored it, it would just go away. Lily insisted she'd get over it and move on. I thought I was doing the right thing by keeping the peace. The right thing? I repeated, incredulous. You let her believe there was a chance. You let her hang on to those feelings, and now she's telling me that you were in love with her. He shook his head, reaching across the table for my hand, but I pulled away. Kara, I swear to you, I don't love her. I never did. Whatever she thinks happened, it's all in her head. I wanted to avoid a mess, but maybe I made things worse. Maybe. I snapped, unable to keep the bitterness out of my voice. Even, she's threatening to tell everyone today, to ruin this whole wedding if I don't step aside. How is that not already a mess? He looked down, his face pale. I had no idea she'd take it this far. I thought she'd moved on, that she was okay with everything. Well, clearly she's not, I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. And now I'm standing here hours before our wedding, wondering if you're lying to me, wondering if you're still hiding something. Even leaned forward, desperation in his eyes. Kara, I swear, I love you. There's nothing else. I'll talk to her, I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. Please don't let her destroy what we have. I looked at him, my heart breaking all over again. But you did this even. You hid it from me. You let her stay close, let her believe that maybe, just maybe, you choose her. And now, I don't know if I can trust you. He sat back, his face falling as the reality of his choices set in. I never wanted this to happen. I thought I was protecting you, protecting us. I didn't realize how much damage I was doing. I stood up, feeling like I couldn't breathe in that small, stifling cafe. I need time, even. I need to figure out if I can even go through with this. He reached for me, his voice panicked. Kara, please. Don't let her win. Don't let her take this away from us. I looked at him, seeing the man I'd loved and the stranger who kept a painful truth from me. This isn't about her winning even. This is about me deciding if I can marry someone who thought it was okay to keep secrets. Someone who didn't trust me with the truth. Without another word, I walked out of the cafe, leaving him sitting there, alone and regretful. But his regret wasn't enough to ease the ache in my chest. I knew I couldn't go through with the wedding. Not like this. Not while my sister's confession loomed over me, casting doubt on everything I thought I knew. Back at the hotel, I collapsed on the bed, feeling a mixture of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. Didn't want to cancel the wedding. I'd spent months planning every detail, dreaming of this day, of a life with Even. But how could I marry someone who had hidden such a monumental truth from me? Someone who had allowed my sister's love to fester into something twisted and destructive. That afternoon, I sent messages to my family and close friends, telling them that the wedding was postponed. I didn't give an explanation, only that it was a personal decision and that I'd reach out when I was ready. My phone buzzed endlessly with messages and missed calls, but I ignored them all, retreating into silence as I tried to process the storm that had torn my life apart. In the evening, Lily called, her name flashing across the screen. I stared at the phone, feeling a fresh surge of anger, and finally picked up. Kara, she began, her voice cautious. I heard that you postponed the wedding. Congratulations, Lily. You got what you wanted. I replied coldly, the words bitter in my mouth. There was a pause on the other end, and when she spoke again, her voice was quiet. That's not what I wanted, Kara. I wanted the truth. I wanted you to know what you were getting into. No, Lily, I said, my voice trembling. You wanted him, and you didn't care if you had to destroy me to get him. She fell silent, and I could feel her hesitation, her guilt seeping through the phone line. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. I took a steadying breath. Well, you did. And now I don't know if I can ever forgive you or him. With that, I hung up, leaving her words and her excuses behind. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. My life as I'd known it was over. And whatever came next, I would face it alone. The days that followed were a blur of unanswered calls and text messages piling up on my phone. Friends and family all wanted to know what had happened, why the wedding was suddenly canceled. My mom was especially frantic, her voice breaking over the voicemail as she begged me to talk to her to explain. But I couldn't handle explaining myself, not when I was barely able to understand what had happened, much less share it with anyone else. I was suspended between heartbreak and anger, struggling to reconcile the loss of the life I thought I'd have with Even. On the third day, a knock on my apartment door jolted me from my thoughts. Reluctantly, I got up and opened it, half expecting another friend or family member wanting answers. But it was Even, looking worn out and lost. He was holding a bouquet of flowers, but even he seemed to know they couldn't fix this. "Kara," he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "I know you don't want to see me, but please. I need a chance to talk, to explain everything." I crossed my arms, resisting the instinct to shut the door on him. "Why now, Even? What's left to explain?" He took a shaky breath, running a hand through his hair. I've made a mess of things. I know that. But I can't just let us go like this. Please, just let me in. Let me try to make sense of all of it with you." Reluctantly, I stepped aside, watching as he walked in, his shoulders slumping as he took in the space he once shared so many memories in. He looked around, as if trying to remind himself of the good times, the moments that had brought us here. But it was clear that even he could feel the weight of the betrayal hanging in the air. He set the flowers down on the table, glancing at me with a guilt I hadn't seen in him before. "Kara, I'm sorry. I should have told you about Lily's feelings a long time ago. I thought I was protecting you, but I can see now that I was just protecting myself from having to face it." I sat down, my anger simmering just below the surface. "You didn't just keep her feelings from me, Even. You let her believe there was something between you two. You gave her hope, and now she's convinced that you love her." He shook his head, pain etched across his face. "No, Kara, I never loved her. It was a mistake, a moment of confusion before I proposed to you. She confessed her feelings, and I was flattered, maybe even a little tempted. But I knew, even then, that you were the one I wanted. I just didn't know how to handle it." His words stung, but they weren't enough to undo the damage. "And now I'm left picking up the pieces of both of your choices. She threatened to ruin my wedding, Even. She said she'd expose your so-called affair to everyone unless I canceled." He looked down, guilt shadowing his features. "I should have set her straight from the beginning. I thought she'd move on, that we could all go back to normal, but I see now how wrong I was." There was a heavy silence between us, each of us trying to process the wreckage of what had once been a relationship built on trust, or what I thought was trust. I looked at him, searching his face for some kind of reassurance, a sign that he truly understood the magnitude of what he'd done. "Even," I said quietly, "you let my sister manipulate you, and you let me live a lie. How am I supposed to move forward with you, knowing that you kept something this huge from me?" He reached for my hand, his grip tentative, his eyes pleading. "Because I love you, Kara. I made mistakes, terrible ones, but that doesn't change the fact that I want to spend my life with you. I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust." I pulled my hand away, feeling the hurt rise again. "And what about Lily? She's my sister, Even. Do you understand how hard it will be to move past this with her in our lives?" He looked away, his face filled with regret. I know this will never be easy, but I'm willing to try if you are. I'll set boundaries with her. I'll be honest with you about everything from now on." But it wasn't that simple. How could I trust him with a promise like that when he'd already kept so much from me? How could I look at my own sister without feeling the sting of betrayal? The future I planned with him felt tainted, overshadowed by secrets and lies that couldn't be easily undone. "Even, I need time," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need to figure out what I want and what I'm willing to forgive. I don't know if I can move past this, not yet." His face fell, but he nodded, accepting the reality of my words. "I understand, Kara. I'll wait as long as it takes. Just, please know that I'm here. Whatever you need, whenever you're ready." He stood up, casting one last look around before heading toward the door, As he left, I felt the weight of his absence settle over me, a reminder of the love I'd lost and the trust that had been shattered. In the days that followed, I tried to distance myself from both Even and Lily, focusing on work and spending time with close friends who didn't ask for details, who just supported me in quiet, steady ways. I avoided my family, knowing that any conversation with them would inevitably circle back to the wedding, to Lily, to everything I was trying so hard to forget. But Lily, as always, found a way to force herself back into my life. One evening, as I was walking back to my apartment, I saw her waiting by the entrance, her expression a mix of guilt and determination. I considered walking past her, pretending I hadn't seen her, but I knew she wouldn't leave until she got what she wanted. I approached her slowly, crossing my arms. "What do you want, Lily?" She looked down, biting her lip. "I want to talk, Kara. I know you're furious, and you have every right to be, but I wanted to explain." I shook my head, exasperated. "Explain what, Lily? How have you decided to sabotage my relationship? How you waited until the night before my wedding to drop this bombshell?" She flinched, her eyes filling with tears. "I know what I did was wrong, but you don't understand. I've loved Even for years. Long before you two ever got together, I had feelings for him. I tried to ignore it to be happy for you, but it got to be too much. Too much for you." I shot back, anger flaring up. "Do you have any idea what this has done to me? You ruined everything, Lily. You destroyed my trust in both of you." She looked down, her face crumpling. "I know, and I'll never forgive myself for it. But Kara, I need you to understand." I thought that maybe, just maybe, he realized he felt the same way. The desperation in her voice made me feel both anger and pity. "So you thought ruining my life would somehow make him fall for you? That's not love, Lily. That's selfishness." She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Maybe it is, but it's also the truth." There was nothing left to say, nothing that could undo the damage she'd done. I looked at her, feeling the finality of it settle over me, and realized that I was done trying to understand, done trying to find a reason for her actions. "I can't do this anymore, Lily," I said, my voice cold. "You're my sister, but you crossed a line that I can't forgive. I need time, and I need distance, from you, from Even, from all of this." She nodded, a single tear slipping down her cheek. "I understand. I hope that one day you can find it in yourself to forgive me." Without another word, I walked past her, leaving her standing alone in the dim light of the street. It felt like the end of something irreparable, a fracture in our relationship that could never be mended. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, finally feeling the weight of everything I'd lost. My sister, my fiancé, the life I'd planned, all of it gone in a whirlwind of lies and betrayal. But amid the heartbreak, I felt a strange sense of clarity, a quiet resolve to rebuild my life on my own terms, without the shadows of their mistakes darkening my future. I didn't know what the path ahead would look like, but for the first time in days, I felt certain of one thing. I was done being caught in the middle of their twisted love triangle. It was time to take back my life, to find strength within myself, and to move forward without the people who had betrayed me. The weeks after my decision to cut ties with Even and Lily were some of the hardest I'd ever faced, but they were also liberating in ways I hadn't anticipated. The chaos of planning my future with Even had been replaced with a new determination to create a life that was truly mine, free of deceit and manipulation. I had to remind myself daily that moving forward wasn't about erasing the pain. It was about finding strength in myself, outside of the people who let me down. Friends who'd once been caught up in wedding plans were now rallying around me with quiet, constant support. I leaned on them more than ever, realizing just how much I'd neglected my friendships for the sake of my relationship and family obligations. My friend Amelia was particularly relentless in keeping me busy, insisting I join her for everything from Saturday brunches to volunteering at local events. Spending time with people who genuinely cared for me and had no ulterior motives helped me heal in ways I hadn't expected. One Saturday, Amelia convinced me to join her at a painting class, which I'd been hesitant about initially. The idea of picking up a brush again was daunting. I'd given up painting years ago, too caught up in life's demands to indulge in something that brought me pure joy. But as I stepped into that studio, surrounded by blank canvases and the scent of fresh paint, I felt a spark of inspiration I hadn't felt in ages. As the class began, I found myself relaxing, letting the colors flow freely onto the canvas without overthinking each brushstroke. It was a small, simple act, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was creating something beautiful out of the mess I'd been handed. My mind wasn't on Even, or Lily, or the tangled web of lies they'd spun. I was focused entirely on myself, on this moment, on the colors and shapes coming to life in front of me. Amelia glanced over at my work, smiling. "You've still got it, Kara. This is beautiful." I looked at the canvas, surprised at how natural it felt to paint again. "Thanks, Amelia. I guess I'd forgotten how much I needed something like this. Something that's just mine." She nodded, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "You're stronger than you know, Kara. This isn't the end of your story. It's the start of a new one." Her words stayed with me as I left the studio that evening, and I realized she was right. This was the beginning of something new, something entirely my own. I'd been so wrapped up in building a life with Even and trying to maintain a relationship with Lily that I'd lost sight of myself in the process. But now, as I walked back to my apartment, I felt a flicker of hope, a sense that I could rebuild, one small piece at a time. The following week, I returned to work with a renewed focus, immersing myself in projects that had once felt like mere routine, but now felt like stepping stones to the future. I met with my supervisor, David, who'd heard through the office grapevine about the canceled wedding but hadn't pressed for details. After I'd updated him on my latest work, he leaned forward, looking at me thoughtfully. "Kara, I just want to say that I'm here if you need anything. I know you've been through a lot, and I'm impressed with how you've handled it all." I nodded, grateful for his understanding. "Thank you, David. Honestly, work has been a good distraction. I needed something stable, something I could count on." He smiled. "And you've been an asset to the team. In fact, we got a new project coming up that I think you'd be perfect for, something a bit more challenging, if you're interested." The offer took me by surprise. It was an opportunity I would have been too distracted to take on just weeks ago, but now I felt ready for it, ready to dive into something that demanded my full attention. "I'd love that," I replied, feeling a genuine spark of excitement. The next few weeks were a blur of hard work and personal growth. I threw myself into the new project, spending late nights and early mornings refining ideas and collaborating with my team. Each accomplishment, each hurdle overcome, was a reminder that I could thrive on my own without the weight of Even and Lily's betrayal dragging me down. And then, one evening, as I was packing up my things after a long day, I got a message from an unknown number. I hesitated, something inside me warning that this couldn't be good. But curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. "Kara, it's Lily. Please, can we talk? I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to make things right." I felt a pang of anger flare up. After all this time, she was reaching out, expecting me to open that door again. A part of me wanted to ignore her, to let her feel the silence that she forced me to endure after her betrayal. But another part of me, the part that still cared about the sister I'd once known, felt the pull to respond. I took a deep breath and typed out a reply. "Fine, let's meet, but don't expect forgiveness." She responded quickly, suggesting a coffee shop we used to visit together. When I arrived, Lily was already there, looking almost timid, a far cry from the confident, headstrong sister I'd grown up with. She looked up as I approached, her eyes filled with a sadness that made me feel something akin to pity. "Thank you for coming," she said softly, gesturing for me to sit. I took a seat across from her, keeping my expression guarded. "I don't know what you expect to accomplish here, Lily. There's nothing you can say that will undo the damage you caused." She nodded, her hands twisting nervously. "I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me. I needed you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, I was selfish and reckless, and I lost sight of what mattered. You deserved better." Her words, while sincere, felt like too little too late. "Why, Lily? Why couldn't you just be honest with me? Why did you have to ruin everything?" She looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was in love with him. I thought that if I didn't tell you, if I just kept it to myself, I could get over it. But the feelings didn't go away, and I made a horrible choice. I let it consume me." I felt a surge of anger rise up. "And instead of dealing with it, you decided to sabotage my wedding to make me doubt everything I had with him." "I know," she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I know I don't deserve your understanding. I just wanted you to hear it from me to know that I was wrong. And if it's the last thing I ever say to you, I want you to know that I love you even if I didn't show it." Her words hung in the air, and for a moment, I saw a glimpse of the sister I'd grown up with, the girl who had been my confidant, my friend. But that person felt like a memory, someone I'd left behind the day she chose to betray me. "I can't forgive you, Lily," I said quietly. "Maybe one day I'll be able to, but right now, I need time. I need distance." She nodded, swallowing hard. "I'd understand. And I'm sorry, Kara. I'm so sorry." Without another word, I stood up and left, leaving her sitting alone in that coffee shop. The weight of her apology lingered with me, but I knew it wasn't enough to undo the damage. Forgiveness, if it ever came, would have to come on my own terms. As I walked away, I felt a strange sense of closure settle over me. I couldn't control what Lily or Even had done, but I could choose my own path forward. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Free to build a life defined not by their betrayals, but by my own strength and resilience. This was my life now, and I was determined to make it one worth living, regardless of the people I'd left behind. The months that followed my conversation with Lily were some of the most transformative of my life. Letting go of her and Even wasn't easy, but the more time I put between us, the more I started to feel like myself again. Without their betrayals hanging over me, I found a freedom I hadn't known in years. My life was finally mine, and I was determined to live it without holding on to the weight of the past. Work became an anchor. My project, the one my supervisor, David, had entrusted me with, grew into something far more rewarding than I could have anticipated. As the lead, I poured myself into it completely, finding in each challenge a reminder of my resilience, a proof that I was capable of thriving on my own. The project's success drew attention within the company, and after a particularly successful presentation, David pulled me aside. "You've done incredible work here, Kara," he said, his voice filled with pride. "We're restructuring a few teams, and I'd like to offer you a promotion if you're interested. It's a big role, but I think you'd be perfect for it." The news hit me like a wave, bringing a rush of emotions. Just months ago, I'd thought my life was crumbling. Now I was being handed an opportunity to lead, to expand my career and push myself in ways I hadn't thought possible. I accepted the promotion on the spot, knowing it was a step toward the future I was creating for myself. Outside of work, my circle of friends became my family. Amelia and the others were constant sources of laughter and comfort, always finding new ways to support and encourage me. She even signed us up for a weekend getaway. A small cabin in the woods where we could unplug and enjoy the peace and quiet. Surrounded by nature, I felt the tension of the past year finally melt away. We spent the days hiking, reading, and talking about everything and nothing, and it was here, amidst the trees and the stillness, that I realized just how much I'd grown. One evening, as Amelia and I sat around the fire, she looked at me with a thoughtful smile. "You know, Kara, I'm proud of you. I don't think you realize just how far you've come." I laughed, brushing it off. "Thanks, Amelia, but honestly, I'm just trying to keep it together." She shook her head, a hint of admiration in her eyes. "No, it's more than that. You took what happened and turned it into something meaningful. You didn't let their betrayal define you." Her words resonated deeply, and for the first time, I saw myself through her eyes. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I'd taken back my life piece by piece, rebuilding it on a foundation of self-respect, independence, and resilience. Back in the city, I continued to pursue old hobbies I'd left behind in the chaos of my relationship with Even. I started painting regularly, allowing the colors and textures to express the emotions I couldn't always put into words. I'd even attended a few local art shows, inspired by the community and its sense of shared creativity. My work began to take on a life of its own, and soon enough, I had a collection of pieces that felt like pieces of my journey. One day, Amelia encouraged me to submit some of my work to a local gallery that was hosting an exhibit for up-and-coming artists. I was hesitant, unsure if my work was good enough, but with her encouragement, I took the leap. To my surprise, a few weeks later, I received an email saying that 2 of my pieces had been accepted for the exhibit. The night of the gallery opening, I felt a mix of nerves and pride. Standing among my artwork, surrounded by people who were genuinely interested in my creations, was surreal. Each painting was a reflection of the pain, the healing, and the growth I'd experienced, and seeing others resonate with that journey filled me with an unexpected sense of fulfillment. Toward the end of the evening, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Turning, I was surprised to see Ben, 34 of him, an old friend from college who'd been part of our group but had moved away years ago. He smiled warmly, clearly as surprised to see me as I was to see him. "Kara, it's been ages," he said, pulling me into a quick hug. "I saw your name in the gallery flyer and had to stop by. These pieces are incredible." We spent the next hour catching up, talking about everything from our old college days to where life had taken us since. Ben was easy to talk to, his presence warm and genuine, and as we reminisced, I found myself laughing and smiling in a way that felt completely unguarded. He told me about his own journey, how he traveled for work and eventually settled back in town, and as the conversation flowed, I realized that being with him felt effortless. Over the next few weeks, Ben and I kept in touch, meeting up occasionally for coffee or a walk in the park. There was no pressure, no expectations, just a friendship that felt natural, honest, and refreshing. He knew bits and pieces of what had happened with Eben and Lily, and while he never pushed for details, he was a compassionate listener when I chose to share. It felt good to open up to someone who respected my boundaries, who wanted nothing more than to support me in my journey forward. One crisp autumn evening, as we walked through the park beneath a canopy of red and gold leaves, Ben paused, looking at me with a quiet intensity. "Kara," he began, his voice soft, "I don't know what the future holds, but I just want you to know that I care about you, and wherever this goes, I want you to know that I'm here, for however long you want me to be." His words warmed me, and I realized that, for the first time since the betrayal, I felt open to the possibility of love. Not because I needed someone to complete me, but because I'd found someone who accepted me as I was. I smiled, reaching for his hand. "Thank you, Ben. I'm not sure what the future holds either, but I'd like to see where this goes." As we walked together, hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The future was uncertain, but it was also filled with possibilities, and I knew that whatever came next, I was ready. In the months that followed, I continued to grow, to create, and to nurture the relationships that had shown me what genuine love and friendship looked like. My life was no longer defined by betrayal or loss, but by the resilience I discovered within myself. I'd learned that my happiness didn't depend on others but came from embracing who I was, scars and all. Standing at the threshold of a new chapter, I knew that I was no longer haunted by the ghosts of my past. I was free. Free to love, to live, and to create a life that was truly, wholly mine.